Caley, warm welcome to Startup Grind.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. As a start, could you give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Of course, I'm a Harvard graduate. I'm board certified behavioral analyst. I would say I've always been very much into psychology and human behavior since a young kid. And growing up in a traditional Asian family and local school, I would say that this curiosity wasn't particularly celebrated. I constantly ask why do we need to attend in higher instructional time when we all know what to do next? So when I was often seen as the naughty, daydreaming, talkative kid, that's why I resonate so deeply with the neurodivergent children I work with, because I live through the same struggles of not having self agency and feeling the pressure to conform and to fit in. So, fast forward, I worked with neurodivergent children across clinical, school, and now research setting. I help them build emotional regulation, adaptability, and self awareness through neurodevelopmental interventions, and I incubated Unlimitics at Harvard Innovation Lab.
Cool. And now you're also at the Hong Kong Incubation Lab.
Yes, exactly. Hong Kong Tech 300.
So that's a very interesting background as you referred back to your school days. And as you said, that was the foundation for Unlimited. So let's sort of dive into that. So you founded Unlimited based on your experience with kid and your personal experience. So what pain points does Unlimited address?
I think when I worked across different school settings, I kept seeing the same patterns again and again. Kids getting labeled as lazy, defiant, or naughty. But in reality, what they were struggling with were core executive functioning skills like emotional regulation, task initiation, self control, etc. And it became clearer that most behavioral incidents weren't about bad intentions. They were symptoms of unmet cognitive needs. Okay, so they would then be labeled with something like ADHD or autism spectrum disorder, and that label would become the endpoint. But the diagnosis doesn't teach a kid how to start homework or handle frustration. And support, when it existed, often happened in silos, 1 hour a week in a controlled environment. But personally, authentic real growth needs to be happening in real life. So my vision for Unlimited was born out of that gap to bring personalized real-time behavioral insights that can be generalized to their everyday experiences.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. Just because you get, as you said, a label, that doesn't mean problem solved. There are things still you need to address it.
Yeah, definitely.
And we met the first time was in January this year when you participated in the global pitch competition. And in preparation for that, and also preparation for this event, I learned about from you about sort of the, as you call it, the common executive issues that are common with kids. And I think you said a few of them, but what are the common executive function and how do they manifest?
Right. Executive functions are our brain's big boss. Things like impulse control, task initiation, emotional regulations, and working memory. Research shows that up to 90% of ADHD kids actually have executive functioning deficits. So when these are lacking, it shows up in incidents like a child may freeze when given instruction, explode during conflict, or avoid studying homework. These aren't discipline problems, they are skill gaps, and they can be supported, taught just like literacy and maths.
So these inside, how did they sort of take the shape to form your next steps before you
It
found it? Or
made me, yeah, it made me realize that if these breakdowns happen in specific moments, so maybe we can build a tool that brings them back to those exact moments. What if they could time travel into a tricky situation, believe it safely, and practice a different outcome? So that's what sparked Unlimitics.
yeah, and I really like that statement about being the redo or undo button. And I think it's not just useful for kids because there are a lot of tricky situations. But this has given us a kind of a basic understanding of what kids are struggling with. So, from your point of view, what are the biggest gaps in how we support kids who needs extra help?
Right. I think one of the biggest gaps is that support often comes in too late or just in one form. Yes, traditional therapy can be effective, but it's really expensive, relatively slow, and it doesn't reach the classroom in real time. Most school systems don't really have the bandwidth to follow up every single behavioral and emotional flag. And these kids unfortunately slip through the cracks. So, what we need is something that scales the insight and intervention. And I think that's where AI can help. So, the tools we offer must be timely, relevant, and easy to practice again and again.
Yeah, and I mean, there is only a few teacher, maybe only one teacher per big group of kids. So, the resources are not in their favor, if you say so. When we spoke about your work, you also mentioned resilience, which is also part of the name of this event. So, what does resilient mean for kids, and sort of how does family and social life, the word resilience, how do we best use it?
Resilience is a child's ability to recover from setbacks and adapt. It's dynamic and it grows through experiences. For kids, especially for neurodivergent ones, resilience means being given the space to process what's happening inside of them. If a child is constantly corrected but never supported in how to repair or how to respond differently, they would internalize it as shame. So I think unstructured playtime, or as long as free play, socialization, and family relationships provide these small doses of stress and repair. But unfortunately, with our modern life today, we have nuclear families, less outdoor play, and the worst is pandemic disruptions. And kids lost many resilience building opportunities. Since it won't happen naturally, we now need to intentionally rebuild that muscle.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I mean, as you said, the that free play builds resilience because you learn from the interactions that you have, and if you don't have that free play, you don't get that. So, in your view, what are the ways we can kind of better support kids to evolve?
Well, we've come a really long way in recognizing neurodiversity. I mean, before, no one knows what is neurodiversity anyway, but we're still lacking in day to day tools. There is, yes, more awareness, but still very few individualized, culturally sensitive interventions. Most tools are Western, one size fits all, and don't speak the child's emotional language, and that's what Unlimitics is trying to change.
Yeah, and that sort of brings us as a good segue to a tool that you have built that can be used in these settings. So, I mean, you built something truly unique. Can you kind of explain what Unlimitics is and how it works and where it's used?
Yes, of course. Unlimitics is an AI powered platform designed to help children build executive functioning skills through moments that really happen in their real life. It works like this: a student or their teacher lost an incident or emotional moment. Our algorithm then reconstructs that scenario, allowing the child to time travel back into it and explore the why. It's not about punishing the behavior, so to say, it's about decoding it. They would then have better self awareness, and that's just step number one. They can therefore explore the power of making different choices and seeing how each one shapes the outcome in our game world.
And that's and I know what the tool is for. At the same time, when I hear you talk about the tool, and I can see so many other situations where two adults are having a business conversation or something, something else where you can say, that would be good to be able to replay or practice beforehand. So I know what the tool is for, but I can definitely see a broader use for a tool like this. Now, one question that we love to ask, of course, is because you built the tool. It's like, kind of walk us through how you built Unlimitics and from idea to product and sort of all the steps that you have taken so far.
Well, I'd love to share. I think it all started when I was still working on my dissertations. It was just like a research paper idea. And it also started with hundreds of case notes and incident reports from my clinical work. I looked for behavioral patterns, mapping common executive function breakdowns. Then I worked with AI engineers and stakeholders like parents, educators to build a system that could stimulate those incidents. We structured each scenario with metadata so the system learns child patterns and adapts. And after MVP development, we tested it with neurodivergent students in Hong Kong, and their feedback has been tremendously helpful and shaped our current version.
And what feedback have you sort of gotten from also from educators?
To our surprise, is very positively. One user described Unlimitics as her assistant coach, and many teachers have shared with me that they honestly were not well equipped with enough strategies of how to deal with neurodivergent students, especially in our classroom management. And by logging in those incidents and to see how they play out, both students and teachers can be more reflective. And she said she seems to have built stronger empathy for her students.
Yeah, I guess because you can also learn from the tool the situations that are difficult, and just as a teacher, as a parent, yourself
Yes,
see them.
absolutely.
From the interactions with the kids or the teachers and parents, are there any stories that really have stuck with you?
Oh, of course. I remember one student named Jay really stays with me. He struggles with emotion regulation, especially when being corrected. Something as small as like, "Sit nicely, please," or "let's try this again," could trigger a full blown emotional shutdown or angry outburst. With Unlimited, we designed a scenario based on his real life struggle, like getting feedback on his writing and he feels overwhelmed. And his avatar, Unimico, learned to pause, label the emotions, and choose a common strategy like breathe and then ask for help. I think after several main quests and side quests, when he was being corrected, to my surprise too, Jay didn't lash out. He paused and said, "I feel really frustrated when you kept asking me to sit nicely." And of course, he wouldn't be like immediately okay being corrected. But that moment was huge because he demonstrated how he used functional communication skills to express his emotion instead of throwing tantrums or throwing stuff. So that's the power of Unlimited. It's not just tracking behaviors, but rewiring responses.
So that means that basically by using the tool and replaying the situations and seeing good outcome versus not so good, he learned what response works.
Exactly. That's correct.
Now, sort of, you taking the road, you did a dissertation, you had the idea, kind of what wisdom or reflections would you share with fellow founders who are listening to get started?
If I could share one thing, that would be the world today doesn't just need more innovation. It needs more understanding, more warmth, more people willing to take that one extra step to reach out. And I think in the post COVID world, where technology often replaces face to face connection, we risk drifting further apart. But human connection isn't built on efficiency alone, it's built on empathy. So if we want to build a tool that truly matters, I think we need to stay human at the core. So that's what I want to share.
And when how do the tool in question, how do people, do they reach out to you to get to try the tool, or how does it work?
So right now we are in the beta testing because Matrix is at several incubation programs. So very fortunately that we have pilot schools and then we have the, for example, Education University of Hong Kong provided us with 60 individuals with autism spectrum disorder. So that's why we could have the opportunity to test Unlimitics out on them.
Okay, and if you want to get, I guess reaching out to you is the best way. So you could, I mean, are you only running the pilots in Hong Kong, or can any school basically be part of a pilot in the future?
I think we're actually open since we're using an AI model. So it's international, it's universal. As long as we have network, then I can actually virtually go through how the MVP works, and then I can train the educator or education assistant how to use it, so then they can get it on board, I think, straight within a week.
Which leads us on to a question that we nowadays always ask of our guests at Startup Grind in regards to AI. How do you keep up with everything that happens in AI? And there are any sources that you follow that you would recommend others to follow as well?
Well, I'm deeply influenced by thinkers like Geoffrey Hinton, but also drawn from experts like Dr. Gabor Mate, Andrew Huberman, or Erica Camosa. Because if we are building tools, AI tools to support kids, we need to understand the brain, emotion, and behavior apart from the algorithms. And since Unlimitics in several incubation programs, so I do attend AI-related events to stay in the ecosystem. But honestly, I do learn the most from my neurodivergent students because watching them to use tech tells a lot. For example, like what's intuitive, what sticks, and where the gaps are. And they are usually very happy to share what's trendy right now. So yes, that's my sources.
So basically you both have, as you say, users, but also researchers in that sense. They do give you
Yes,
feedback.
very well prescribed. Yes.
Caley, it's been amazing to have you here at Startup Grind. We're not done yet. We're going to move on to the Q&A, but thanks you so much for sharing your story and your insights. So how do people best reach out to you?
I'm Unlimitics on all social media platforms, so that's Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And on all those platforms, we are always open to partnerships and pilot schools.
And that's great. And so, Caley, once again, big thank you for being our guest. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring my colleague Marin on, and we're going to go and look at the questions in the chat.